Hello, my name is Scott Davis and welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for August 28th to September 3rd of 2016. And on August 28th, we have the sun denoted by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Virgo. It's also in the 59th hexagram, and on the outside of the wheel we have the chop mark for the 59th hexagram. Numbered from bottom to top, the 59 goes yin, yang, yin, yin, yang, yang. And then the 59th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the 59th gate of sexuality, dispersion, the ability to break down barriers and achieve union, located in the sacral center in a tribal energy path in the defense circuit called the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction that connects to its harmonic gate, the 6th gate of friction, conflict, the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on August 28th. The sun is in the 59th gate and the earth is in the 55th gate. The north node is in the 64th gate and the south node is in the 63rd gate. Mercury is at a standstill or stationed as it turns retrograde on the 30th, and it's in the 46th gate. Venus is in the 6th gate. Mars is in the 5th gate. Jupiter is also in the 6th gate with Venus. Saturn is in the 9th gate. Uranus is retrograde in the 42nd gate. Neptune is retrograde in the 37th gate. And Pluto is retrograde in the 54th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And we begin the week with one channel definition due to the transit field. With Venus and Jupiter in the 6 and the Sun in the 59, we have the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction, until the 28th. This definition brings the energy where people will find it easier to be intimate with almost anyone, which can happen quickly, but may also be misunderstood. This is a channel of pure fertile power, as in making babies, but also birthing creative projects and processes. I'd expect this to be a time period where people may consciously or unconsciously break down barriers to intimacy and new endeavors. Using your strategy and authority will be the only way to determine if an intimate encounter is correct for you or not. With the defined sacral center, this can affect non-generator types and feeling busy and having the endurance to work. Also, they may think that they know when enough is enough, which could lead to the premature or abrupt ending to something that really needs more time. And the defined solar plex center, for those who do not have emotional definition, this channel can bring that unfamiliar wave of emotions and perhaps even lead to acting confrontational. April 28th begins with the sun in the 6th line of the 59th hexagram, and the sun in the 59-6 is exalted by Venus in the 6th, and is described as the one-night stand. The tendency based on personality or circumstances to accept only temporary unions that may be otherwise impossible or dangerous to continue. Exalted, the perfected relationship, whether for a moment or an eternity, the power for intimacy regardless of conditions. Then later on the 28th, the sun moves from the 59 to the 40, and the earth moves from the 55 to join Neptune in the 37, which then gives us this channel definition. So we'll start with the Earth. The Earth is in the 37th hexagram, and this is the gate of friendship, the family, the manifestation, macro and microcosmically, of the organic nature of communities. And this shift happens at 11:39 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's 15:39 UT, with the sun in the 40th gate of Aloneness, Deliverance. the point of transition between struggle and liberation. And the sun is exalted in the first line of the 40th hexagram, which is recuperation, exalted, the ability to relax and enjoy the fruits of one's behaviors, the ego strength to enjoy being alone. And as we move from the 59 to the 40, we enter a gate of supporting tribal relationships. It's an ego gate about being alone with the other. This is about having the willpower to deny or not, of having a bargain with the other, a gate of working for another. We are still in the quarter of duality, of bonding, of relationships. So it's about being alone within the relationship, being alone and connected, or feeling lonely and disconnected, being with the same person, whether they are whether you are with another or not. So that the person you are doesn't change depending on who you're with. So it's to not struggle with being ourselves in relationships, but also not to be entirely liberated from relationships. The solar plexus gate 37. Is both the harmonic and polarity to gate 40, bringing waves of belonging and familiarity. This brings us to the third variation of the cross of planning, the cross of which is also the cross of our current global cycle until 2027. The 37 is open and waiting, hoping for something spiritual. The 40 smells the 37's agenda and may deny based on the bargain. The 37 may say, "I'll be affectionate with you," but the 40 asks, "And what is that affection worth? Is the bargain worth my effort and labor?" This is an emotional channel, so it's about that there's no truth in the now. The worth will change as people move through their emotional wave. And when we have the sun in the 40, we have the resistance to the planning process. And then also on the 28th, we have Venus moving from the 6th, leaving behind Jupiter, and moving into the 46, where it joins Mercury. And retrograde Pluto backs from the 54 into the 38. All right, so we'll start with talking about Venus. In human design, Venus is about values, morality, the natural law in which we deal with the other and the circumstances of the world around us, according to Ra. And Venus in the 46th gate of determination of the self, pushing upward, good fortune that may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. And in the first line of the 46, Venus is in the line of being discovered, dedication in obscurity that is unexpectedly discovered, exalted, art for art's sake. Any creative endeavor that is self-fulfilling sooner or later is recognized. The potential for creative success through dedication. Detriment, the ability to judge the potential of those in obscurity, but often solely for the benefit of one's own success. The determination to recognize and benefit from the success of others. And in the program, Venus is about control through maintaining the status quo in a way in which we operate with each other. And we all experience the transiting planets through the Maya, and we're not here to avoid the Maya, but to embrace it, but embracing it as yourself through following your own strategy and authority. And then also on the 28th, retrograde Pluto, again moving from the 54 into the 38. This is Pluto's in the gate of the fighter, opposition, the ability to preserve individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces. Since Pluto is retrograde, it enters in at the 6th line of the 38. which is the line of misunderstanding, opposition without bias. Exalted, eventual crystallization, which clears up misunderstandings. Energy, which attracts misunderstandings, and the stubbornness to face opposition. Detrimented, the recognition that misunderstanding is the root of opposition, but the insistence that it is the misunderstanding of the opposing forces, where misunderstanding is at the root of the struggle, the energy of stubbornness to insist on maintaining one's position. And Pluto is a teaching planet in the program. It teaches that there's always the potential for truth. It's a truth that is deeply difficult to get at. And Pluto moves very, very slowly, and it takes several human lifespans to complete its orbit. So no one really gets to know the whole truth. And with the Sun-Earth axis in the 3740, we have the channel of community until September 3rd. This definition brings the energy where people will wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live this out. This is a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes more important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance is important in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community and on a mystical level where they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. This impacts people to think about the need to be supportive of those around them, and they get pulled into things related to the community. And with the defined ego center, people without a defined heart center may feel like they have something to prove or want to make improvements or make promises and commitments that are not correct for them. And as we had mentioned earlier, the defined solar plexus, for those without emotional definition, really continues to bring that unfamiliar wave of emotions and perhaps leads to acting confrontational. Excuse me. On the 29th, the Sun then moves into the second line of the 40th hexagram at 10:55 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's 14:55 UT. The Sun's exalted in the second line of the 40th hexagram, where it's described as resoluteness, exalted the power and authority in deliverance to shed forever the qualities which hamper liberation, the power through aloneness to recognize the importance and the potential disruptive effect on others. On the 30th, the Sun then moves into the third line of the 40th hexagram at 10:11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 14:11 UT. The Sun in the third line of the 40th hexagram is humility, a calculated mode in deliverance to avoid attracting the attention of negative forces. Exalted, the subtlety to enjoy deliverance without having to flaunt it. The capacity of the ego to avoid negative forces even if it means being alone. Detrimented, the ego arrogance that demands attention and gets it. The capacity of the ego to demand attention. On the 31st, the Sun then moves into the fourth line of the 40th hexagram at 9:27 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 13:27 UT. The Sun in the fourth line of the 40 is described as organization, exalted the power to transform and the intuitive intellect to select and organize for the purposes of maintaining deliverance. The power of the ego when organized and active to maintain separateness. Detriment and uncontrollable zeal that ignores the quality which in the long run may destabilize deliverance. The empowering of the ego through the capacity to organize others. September 1st, the Sun then moves into the fifth line, that heretical line, fifth line of the 40th hexagram at 8:41 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 12:41 UT. The Sun is detrimented in the fifth line of the 40th hexagram due to the Earth being in the 37th gate. This is described as rigidity, the recognition that to achieve liberation, all negative forces must be rejected. detrimented a tendency in revolution to accept a certain amount of necessary deviation on the assumption that it will be successfully purged later on. The weakness of the ego in its loneliness to maintain and not reject negative relationships. And then also on the 1st, we've got Jupiter moving out of the 6th gate in hexagram and joining Mercury and Venus in the 46. And in human design, Jupiter's generalized law. Jupiter is in the 46th gate of determination of the self, pushing upward. Good fortune may be perceived as the result of serendipity, but derives from effort and dedication. And Jupiter is detrimented in the first line of the 46th hexagram. This is the line of being discovered. Dedication and obscurity that is unexpectedly discovered. Detrimented the ability to judge the potential of those in obscurity, but often solely to benefit one's own success. The determination to recognize and benefit from the success of others. And in the program, Jupiter is about expression through bringing out the general rules of the program. We're all being conditioned to follow the same rules, to abide by those rules, to drive you to action. So again, following your strategy and authority, not the rules of the program, is the best way to live life within the program. On the 2nd, the Sun then moves into the 6th line of the 40th hexagram at 7:55 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 11:55 UT. The Sun is exalted in the 6th line of the 40th hexagram, but it's also detrimented by the Earth in the 37. So again, we have the exaltation being the upward pointing triangle, the detriment being the downward pointing triangle. So the just now for the 2nd, when the Sun moves into the 6th line, will look like a 6-pointed star. And this is the line of decapitation, the necessary destruction of inferior forces in position of power before liberation can take place. Exalted the authority, coupled with the magnanimity to remove from power only those which deserve such drastic treatment. The power and authority of the ego to eject individuals in legitimate defense of the group. Detrimented, exemplified by the terror of the French Revolution, where the idea of who was deserving of punishments was cruelly extended to an entire class. The distortion of the ego through power and authority. And then also on the 2nd, Venus moves out of the 46, leaving behind Mercury and Jupiter, and it moves into the 18. So, and we talked about Venus a little earlier, being about values, morality, natural law. So now we've got Venus, and it's in the gate of correction, work on what's been spoiled, the vigilance and determination to uphold and defend basic fundamental human rights. And Venus in the first line of the 18 is in the line of conservatism, the adherence to traditional patterns despite and or in spite of changing circumstances, exalted gradual modification to avoid eventual upheaval, the potential to correct through gradual modification, detrimented the patriarch whose rigidity guarantees deterioration, the potential to refuse to correct. On the 3rd, the Sun then moves out of the 40 and joins the North Node in the 64, and the Earth leaves Neptune in the 37 and joins the South Node in the 63. So we've got the Earth is in the 63rd hexagram, and the gate of doubt after completion in the spiral of life. All endings are beginnings, and this shift happens at 7:09 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 11:09 UT. The sun in the 64th gate of confusion before completion. Transition, like birth, requires a determined strength for the passage through. And the sun in the first line of the 64 is in the line of conditions. Exalted, in penetrating to the center, the understanding that it instills the necessary harmony to survive disorder. Amongst the confusion, the difficulty in finding the point. Detriment of the powerful temptation when having transition in sight to hasty actions. The urge to act when you think you've made sense of confusion. And as we move from the 40 to the 64, we enter a gate of sharing the collective past. The 64 in the head center brings pressure to make sense of the past. Mental fuel is mental fuel for the abstract collective process. It inspires the mind to focus on the past, which can bring confusion. The reviewing of memories, reviewing of experiences, and being collective, the sharing of past events with others. It's about relationships in the quarter of duality, and its harmonic gate in the Ajna center, the 47, is obsession. Sorry, not obsession, oppression. And so this is about sharing subjective perceptions of the past. The polarity of the 64, again, is another head center gate, the 63. This is the 63rd gate, is a collective logic gate, and it's the pressure to find answers by looking at patterns. And the 63rd and 64th gate are here to question the absolute. There is no absolute truth. And this really brings us to the third variation of the cross of consciousness. This is about inspiring others, but those same minds that inspire others are often confused and doubtful themselves. And then also retrograde Mercury backs out of the 46 and into the 6. So we've got Mercury, the messenger of the gods. So this is about communication, or as Ra put it, expansion of human consciousness through communications, not just as words, but also as music. And Mercury is in the gate of friction, conflict, the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. Retrograde Mercury enters the 6th line of the 6th hexagram, where it is exalted in the line of the peacemaker, the discipline and integrity of a superior force to unilaterally cease conflict and permit surrender and survival of its foe. Exalted, the highest form of reason, is that life is sacred. The emotional power to end conflict tempered by feelings and sensitivity. And in the program, Mercury is about expression through communication. It influences the homogenized population to communicate about the themes of the gate and line that transiting Mercury inhabits. Its primary impact is psychological. It impacts the not-self mind. It distorts the way we look at things in a way that leads to action. This conditions people to think and communicate about the same things. And in the 6th gate, I'd expect to hear people talk about whether they are open or closed to intimacy. So I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be for September 4th, 2016. Should be available on the 3rd, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube. There's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose. And invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or you wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And as always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries, their synthesis and application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All my best to you and look forward to connecting with you in the future.